Land of Black Gemara. Today's daf is daf Ayin Hey. We're starting the next Pedic. Now today's Gemara is very, very pedantic, and we finished with Skila, and now we're going to talk about Sreifa. Then we're going to talk about we're going through every punishment, all the Averas. So we're going to detail the Gemara, delineate from Sreifa. We'll move on to Sayif and then to Chenek. So now Sreifa. If someone has relations, for example, with his daughter, or he has relations with his mother-in-law, you get Sreifa, and the Gemara is going to ask, how do we learn all of these things? So we're can try to learn the whole Gemara, so it finishes actually if Ayin Vav and out the middle of the page, most of it. But it's all the same Gemara, and you just have to, there's very few Mefarshim. It's basically just understanding the Psukim. So the Mishnah says, the following people, if you committed, what do you call it? The intimacy with them, you get burnt. The punishment is burnt. Habo al isha ubita. If a person has relations with a woman and her daughter. Now, if you're talking about his wife and his daughter, it's a modern loshon, as we'll see. It sounds like if it's talking about his wife and her mother, so your mother-in-law, then you don't get punished for living with your wife. You get punished, only one punishment for the mother-in-law or the daughter. But here it seems to be saying Habor Ali Shabita, they're both committing an Avera. Both of them are wrong to you. So we'll see what that's talking about. Next thing is a Bas Kohen she's inside. We learned before, right? It's clear in the Pasuk. The daughter of a Kohen is Mizana. We had a Machlekes, whether she's engaged or whether she's married, but they get Sreifa. Yesh Bechlal Isha Bita. Isha Bita is the only thing written in the title. A woman and a daughter. And we're going to see what we're going to say. It's talking about maybe a mother-in-law and her daughter, or a mother-in-law's mother and her daughter, which is your mother-in-law. In other words, your wife's grandmother and her mother. That's what the pasuk is talking about, and from that we learn out Bitoi, his own daughter, Ubas Bitoi. So with his own daughter, he gets Reifa. With the daughter's daughter, Ubas Benoi, the son's daughter, if he has relations, then the grandfather. Ubas Ishtoi, the daughter of his wife. The daughter means she brought in people into the family. Ubas Bita, and the daughter of your wife's daughter, the granddaughter. Ubas Benoi, her granddaughter on her son's side. Chamoisei, his mother-in-law, the aim Chamoisei, and his mother-in-law's mother, her grandmother, and the aim Chamav, his father-in-law's mother. No, if he has relations with his wife's grandmother, you get Sreifa, whether it's on the mother's side, her mother's side or her father's side. Okay. Says the Gemara, Habo Alisha Shenasa Bita, like doesn't say that if you have relations with your mother-in-law, why is it a problem because you happen to marry your daughter, it's your wife. It doesn't say that we're talking about that. Sounds like they're both wrong. Side the Isha was wrong what you're doing, and side the Bita was wrong. Miklala Tavayili Suda, both wrong. Who we talking about here? Manini, we're talking about Chamoisai, the aim Chamoisai. If you have you have a wife, and now you can't control yourself, so now you have relations with her mother, and you have relations with her grandmother. So both of them are us. And the pasuk, when it says in the pasuk Isha Bita, we're talking about a grandmother and a mother, because the Mishnah says this is the paradigm, this is the pasuk, and everything else we equate to that. An H is issue because the pasuk is talking about here, right? No, the pasuk is the Mishnah saying this is what the pasuk says, and then we are going to learn anything from it. In the pasuk it says in the pasuk Erebas Isha Bita Loisegala. So yeah, talking about Isha Bita, talking about your family. The question is which members of your family? This is incest. Which members of your family are you talking about? So it's talking about here, both of them are asur. Now, the Gemara refers it to a machlekes later. It's a pity the machlekes at the very end of the whole sugya, we'll do it tomorrow, is a machlekes for Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. And the exact pasuk is right before the next mission. But anyway, the exact pasuk is, it says in the pasuk, if ish, I'll just quote you the pasuk because it's very important. If somebody has relations with a woman and her mother, zimahi. So this is my mother and her mother-in-law. That's called zima. Very important, the word zima as well. And what's the punishment? Ba'eshis, they get burnt. Not skila, sreifa. Then it says, oy soy the eshen. Now, if you take it literally in Hebrew, eshen means them. So you would think that both women are getting punished. Now, why are both women getting punished? One of them is your wife. You're allowed to marry your wife. You did Aveda with her mother. So what do you mean the eshen? So we have a machlekes Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shmuel says the word eshen is not Hebrew; it's Greek. Now the word eshen is Greek, and in Greek, eshen means one. Only one person gets burnt. That's what Rabbi Shmuel says. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, Esen means both. Hebrew, it's Hebrew, not Greek, it's Hebrew, and it means both. Comes along Abaye and says that what's the machlekes Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva? They're only arguing in the mashmois. Now what? Rabbi Shmuel holds that Esen is Greek, which means that the Torah is not talking that you're only going to get punished for one. We're talking about your wife and your mother-in-law, and you're going to get who get punished for that? Oisoi the Esen and one person who, not your wife, your mother-in-law, which means your mother-in-law's mother, your grandmother. The Torah does not talk about it at all. We're not talking about a grandmother here. We're talking about a mother-in-law and your wife. Esen means only one of these women are going to get punished. Who is that? The mother-in-law. Rabbi Akiva says no. Rabbi Akiva says they both get punished. But who are they both? Why should your wife get punished? We're talking about your mother-in-law and her mother, the grandmother. So according to Rabbi Akiva, grandmother's mafedish in the Torah, and according to Rabbi Shmuel, nowhere it says grandmother. We learn it out from Gzei Shabbos. Okay, that's Abaye's version. Rabbi says no. No one holds that the grandmother is discussed in the Torah. The machlekes is Rabbi Shmuel holds that one of them gets punished because your wife died already. And even though there's only one person left here, your mother-in-law is still forbidden to you. That's the chiddush of the pasuk here. And Rabbi Akiva says, no, only stay, and only if they're both still around, even though only one of them will get punished, your mother-in-law, not your wife, but you don't get sreifa for your mother-in-law unless your wife is still alive. So according to Rav, nowhere does the Torah clearly say your grandmother, your wife's grandmother. According to Rabbi, according to Rabbi Shmuel, according to Rabbi Akiva, it's talking about stehen, that your wife's grandmother. So now our Mishnah says, what's the paradigm? What's the Isser in the Torah? The mother-in-law and the grandmother. So who holds that the grandmother is written in the Torah? So says the Gemara, because we're saying right now they're both Isser. So it must be talking about a mother-in-law and a grandmother, and this is what the Torah means. Which opinion says that the Torah asks the mother-in-law and the grandmother? Says the Gemara. Umani, who are the two? The mother-in-law and the grandmother. Uktani, and it says here, Yesh b'chlal isha bita, that everything is learned from this isha bita, which is the grandmother and the mother-in-law. Miklal the tavayik, both of these are written in the Torah. The Hanach and all the other dinim is Midrash Asi. There's Shabbos we learn it out. Tell me. According to Baye, the Amr says Mashmois Doishanikim, and I don't need arguing on the Taich. They're only on what and Mashmois. What are you learning out from the Torah? According to Rabbi Akiva, it says Esa means both. They both get burnt. Must be talking about a mother-in-law and her mother, the grandmother. So according to Rabbi Akiva, it's clearly in the Torah talking about the grandmother. So that's our Mishnah. Masni Samani Rabbi Akiva. So also of our Mishnah Rabbi Akiva. Rava said that everyone agrees that the grandmother's not discussed in the Torah at all. We're talking about the mother-in-law, and the whole machlekes is whether if you have a relationship with your mother-in-law while after your wife passed away, is there still an issue or not? The whole machlekes is only the mother-in-law after the wife died. Is maslis and mani who holds that the grandmother's clearly in the Torah? I will answer. Tani, let's amend the Mishnah. Amend Habo Alisha Shenasa Bita. We're talking about that Habo Alisha, not that both of them are Isha. Add the word Shenasa Isha, as if it's written Shenasa Isha. You know, we have many times the Gemara it says Chsuri Mechsa, words are missing. You have to add this. So then you wonder. So why couldn't the Gemara just add it and change the Mishnah? We still learn the Mishnah the way it is without those words. And yet these words change the whole shot. Here, Rava comes along and says, even though it says Mishnah Isha Bita, it doesn't mean. And they sound like both of Isha. It doesn't read Isha Shenasa Bita, the mother-in-law, because you married her daughter. So why that doesn't say that in the Mishnah?
Well, anyway, there won't be a one time.
According to Rava holds that everyone agrees. There's no machlekes. Everyone agrees the grandmother is not written in the Torah, right? According to Rabbi Akiva. Generally, Rabbi Akiva. So and that we let him begin Mar and Megillah that all the Mishnayos were written alibad Rabbi Akiva. So fix it. Okay, but I'll look you like Rob. So there's a beautiful Tiferes Yisrael. I think it's at the Kalim. I can't remember where it is. Tiferes Yisrael writes, why he asks a general question. All these Chsuri Mechsas, why doesn't why do we amend the Mishnahs? So he says, I don't know where he gets this from. I'm not vouching for this, but he says that how did they memorize the Gemara in those days? I can see it from my grandson. My grandson, who's only 5 years old, knows like 3 Prakim Tanya Barat. How does he know 3 Prakim Tanya Barat? You know, I didn't know anything. They sing it. He says it to me. He sings the Tanya. And it seems that when you turn it into a song, you can remember it. So, but this, he said, how did all the Tanaim remember? And the Gemara encouraged him, everyone said you have to learn with a tune. Why? He said, because that's how they memorize it. And the moment you start changing the words, they forget everything. It doesn't fit into the song anymore. So therefore, since they chazed the Mishnah in a certain way, and even though the Gemara says Chlemechsa, so they sing that Gemara in a note tune and have to leave things where they are, otherwise it'll get corrupted and they'll forget everything. Interesting theory. No, I think Sally Kalim. I remember I saw it years ago. I think Kalim, but I'm sure you'll find it. But it's a fascinating idea, but I don't know if I don't remember if he brings from someone or it's his own thought. But interesting idea. Anyway, says further, yes, you should be the chamoisa, bein chamoisa, bein chama. Okay, so Abaya, according to Abaya, nalocheda. What do you mean, yesh b'chal? One of them, according to Abaya, the grandmother's written in the Torah. So the Mishnah says, yesh b'chal, we learn these three things. Not you don't learn all three things. Yesh b'chal isha, it says, kal isha, biti have chamoisa, the mother, but according to Abaya, that's mefedish in the Torah. So what do you tell me we're learning it out from there? And the aim chamoisa and the grandmother, that's the Torah in the Torah according to Abaya. Chamoisa, everybody agrees is the Torah, mother-in-law. According to Abaya, grandmother is also in the Torah. No, for aim chamav, the only one you really have to learn out according to Abaya is the mother-in-law, is the father-in-law's mother. Is Labaya, so why is the Mishnah say all three? I did the Mishnah aim chamav. Once you have to say, you have to learn out the father's mother-in-law, the father-in-law's mother is Taninami chamoisa bein chamoisa. So it just throws it in derech agad. According to Rava, two things we have to learn from the pasuk, because according to Rava, no grandmother is written in the Torah. But I did the Kabbalah Mishnah aim chamav bein chamoisa. It's about written in Taninami chamoisa. So how do you know whatever's missing in the Torah? How do you know to learn that you get straight from all that? Cryptic Brisa wants to explain it. Says the Brisa in the pasuk, ish asher yikach isha zebana. If a person takes a isha so isha as ima, a woman and her mother, right? Some mother-in-law, and the pasuk says that zima here, very important the word zima here, and they get burnt. And then it says oisha ve'esen. Oisha ve'esen we'll learn later on tomorrow. Ainly ele isha ve'ima. All we know from here is okay, your mother, bas isha u bas bita. What about her daughter? And what about granddaughter or bas and a grandson? Ainly isha even. I just lost the place. It says over here in this pasuk Zima. But when it comes to that's talking about the punishment. When it comes to the pasuk that gives them a warning, don't you dare, every punishment needs a warning. When it comes to the pasuk of a warning, there it says bas b'noah, there's bas bita. Leisikach, don't take it, right? So Sha'arehena zimi, where we had before. Sha'arehena zimi. So Malahal, looks like over there where it says the second zima. It says granddaughters. Bito bas bana. It's a daughter and the granddaughters, even though the pasuk does not mention a word about a daughter at all. We'll see later the Gemara, how do you know daughter? Is Avkan bito bas bana. So we'll learn zima that when it comes to the Easter over here, that a woman, her mother, so too her daughter, her children as well as. Okay. Menayin, why do you get punished? You get sreifa for all of them. Because we'll learn zima. Menayin lasses chodim kinekavis. Now the Gemara doesn't. We'll discuss later. What do you mean males like females? What do you mean by that? Nema kan zima, nema hal zima, malahala. It says over here zima. By straight it says zima, and it says later on by the warnings it says zima malahala chodim kinekavis. Right now the Gemara thinks because there's bas b'na and just like bas bita is avkal here also is a chodim kinekavis. So here also your father-in-law's mother is also included. Chodim kinekavis. That's the Gemara thinks in the beginning. Menayin lashes lamata kilamayla. I know you can make future generations like the earlier generations. Nema kan zima, nema halan zima. Malahalan lamata kilamayla. The grandchildren are included. Is avkan lamata kilamayla. Here also in the punishment get all included. Here it talks about the mother-in-law. We're talking about the future, the up high generations. I like the lower generations. Is avahalom when it comes to the warning is l'mayla kalamat. Okay, that's the brisa. Mara will explain all this. What do you mean males like females? If you want to tell me what, that the daughter of a son is just like the daughter of a son. But how do you have it says in face of the pasuk, both of them. You're not comparing anything. What you're trying to say is that the mother-in-law's that the father's father-in-law's mother is just like, it's not written in the Torah, it's just like the mother-in-law's mother, which is written in the Torah. Hashta, and what are you talking about? Hashta em chamaisa lekamala. We haven't yet established the mother-in-law's mother is us. You're already trying to. You tell me what we're learning at Beno Kipita, but we haven't looked at Bita yet. We haven't yet in this brisa told us that the mother-in-law's mother is us. Right? Where do you know that from? So already learning out for me the father-in-law's mother. So what's going on here? Or by Harikama. This is what he means. How do you know? How do you know to make relatives that come from him, his daughter and all that, all of his own relatives come from him, not his wife, not from his wife, because that's called Isha. He raped someone, and all of her children, but not through kedushin. How do you know that all of these students apply? Because when the Torah says Isha Bita, there it talks about your wife through kedushin. How do you know it's not your wife, but a woman that you're ma'anis? All of her children are usher to you as well. So just like if she would have been your wife, all her children, everything, all the descendants are usher to you. How do you know if she's not your wife? How do you know that if you just ma'anis her? How do you know that all of her children are usher to you? Nema kan zima. It says over here zima. And that's what he's saying here. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? Well, b'she'er today, when it comes, where does it say she'er today? It says ervas bas bincha, bas bitcha leisegala, and we learned that this pasuk is not talking about your wife, because we already have others talking about your wife. It's talking about this is the woman that you're ma'anis. Nowhere in this pasuk it says the word zima. It says, I read the pasuk, ervas bas bitcha leisegala, ki ervas chahena. It's an erva. It doesn't say the word zima. So what are you telling me that we're comparing it that you get strafe and all those same punishments? Because there's no zima here. But Rabba says, which we said many times, Asya. We have three psukim. So here it says Hena. And we compare that to another Hena where it says Erva, where it does talk about your wife. It says Ervas Isha Bita. And it concludes Sha'ara Hena Zimahi. There it says Hena. So we learn Hena. And then in that pasuk it says Zima. So the Hena is compared to Zima. And then we have Zima in this other pasuk which talks about punishment. So we go back to it's like a double Gzer Shava. And we go back to, this is the law of symmetry. A equals B, and B equals C, then A equals C. So Hena equals Hena, and Hena equals Zima. It's the same pasuk, second Hena. And then Zima is Gzer Shava to the other Zima, where it says by Sreifa. So then we go back to the first pasuk and we say, oh, Hena, even your wife's children, not your wife, the woman that you impregnated, her children are also, and you get the same punishment. You said the Braisa. How do you know? We right now understand Lamata means the lower generations like the higher generations. What do you mean? You tell me the lower generation, like granddaughter, just like your own daughter. Your own daughter gets rape. Your granddaughter gets rape. But how did it's written all in the same pasuk? We have to learn it. What am I comparing? The pasuk says bas bitcha, bas bincha. It says all that in the same pasuk. It says that you get sreifa. Says the Gemara. I said all that in the same pasuk. It says bas benov, bas bita leishegach. So it says isha bita and bas benov. It says so. What you're learning here, one from another. It's all written in the same pasuk. What it means is that the mother-in-law's mother and the father-in-law's mother are usher to you and get safer. So Moshe, that's lamata l'mayla. Lamata means the future generations. Hi lamata l'mayla. L'mayla kalamata. If you're telling me we're learning from here, the grandparents. So that's l'mayla. The grandparents are the early generations. Is kilamata, like the lower generations. The wording is wrong. Moshe, right? Tani l'mayla kalamata. Change the words around, as if it says l'mayla kalamata. So. Nema kan zima, v'nema lahalan zima, uma hashta ini like siva zima to do ksiva. If it doesn't say the grandmothers are all in the pasuk, what do you tell me? How do I know you get sreifa? Because it says zima, but it doesn't say anywhere. So we're just comparing it. So how do you know what Gzer Shav is there? Let's understand the Braisa as follows. Going downwards, we know it's also the daughter and the granddaughter. 3 generations are us. So going upwards, even though the Torah only says the mother-in-law, which is only second generation, we're going to add a 3rd generation because we're comparing it to Lamata. We're comparing the Lamaila to Lamata. Nema Lamata Zima. Nema Lamaila Zima. And it says is Zima as well. It says over there, if a man takes Isha as Bita, you get, safe. Is Malamata, just like Lamata, 3 generations, Lamailos generations, and you get safe. And just like by punishment. Also, Lamata Kilamaila, just like when it comes to punishment, we say that the lower generations, you get safer. Which is just like the 3rd generation gets safer, just like the 2nd generation. So Abbas Haranami, also when it comes to the Easter, the warning, and it says Loy Segala, right? Because that's where the pasuk is. We learn a lot. Loy Segala and says Zimi, also Lamai Kalamata. That we say that includes the high generation as well. The side for the Einish and side for the Azara. Rav Ashi, no, we don't even have to say change the price around. You decided lamata means lower generations, lamaila means upper. No. Lamata means weaker isurim, and lamaila means closer to you, so they're higher isurim. I don't care. The behind, those ahead of you, those are behind you. That's irrelevant. It's not the point here. Lamata lamaila means higher avedas. Sorry, stricter avedas or more lenient avedas. Umayla mata lamata beiser. It means that Ma'alamata means Lamata B'Isha. We're comparing. The next generation is always one step lower than the early generation. Your granddaughter is a step removed from your daughter. So your daughter is Lamaila, higher, and the granddaughter. Same thing, Lamaila. Same thing above. Your mother-in-law is what do you call it? Is Lamaila, and your grandmother is Lamata because she is a step away. She's a lower Isa, lesser Isa. Imahi. Just like there, aim imasura, afhu, aim imayasura. So just like over there, the grandmother's us, over here by him also, the grandmother's us. I'm going to ask a question. If so, if you're going to compare the whole thing, then why do we say, why is it only, because the din is only when you get sreifa, only if it's her side of the family, her grandmother, and either for the mother's side or the father's side. But his own grandmother, he's a nisa, but you don't get sreifa. But if you're going to compare Lamata Lamaila, why don't you do across the board? What's the chilik? Her side of the family, his side. In true man, logic is hard to understand. So imahi lechayda aim imasura afu aim imayasura should be us as well. But about imchahi, it says imchahi that she's also because it's your mother. Shemima temchayva when you have a relationship with your mother, it says imchi. Obviously, it's your mother. What to say is spelled out imchi. Shem ima temchayva. The temchayva shem ima. The Torah clearly says that the aim ima is different. Rabba said, now this Rabba here will be used twice in Gemara. It goes as follows. Rabba says, he's arguing the possibly, but he says even in logic, I'll tell you, it doesn't make sense, this question. Because when we learn A from B, there's two ways of learning. One is daimina umina, and one is daimina wukiba asra, which means daimina means you learn A from B. Since you're the home marker for A is from B, then whatever din is by B applies to A. That's how it is. And even if it doesn't make sense, a little bit different than what other things in AI, it doesn't matter. You learn completely from B. That's daimina umina, or whatever it is. Daimina wukibasa means the principle you learn from B, but now you go back to A and say, well, let's see how it fits into A. So Rabbi says, whichever way you want to learn, it doesn't make sense to give your own grandmother sreifa. That's what you want to do. You want to compare old grandmothers the same. Whether you follow that opinion. It doesn't work. Let's go through it. Let's learn from there and learn exactly how you get safer for your own grandmother, your biological grandmother. Mahi ima asura. Afhunami ima asura, right? But first you learn from there that it's us. How do you know how your own grandmother's us? Nobody doesn't say to say that. So let's learn from there that's us. And then question umina. And then learn completely. Mahi besreifa, afunam besreifa. That you're asking. So if you learn daimino, mina, what? For your own grandmother. So for your own mother, the din is you get skill. But for your grandmother, you get safer. Okay, what's the problem? If you follow up Shimon and said that's safer, stricter, so your grandmother will be stricter than your own mother. For your mother, you get skila. But for your grandmother, you get safer, get burnt. Equal if we can ask. Malihi shekain ima besreifa. You know why over there by your mother-in-law? Since your mother-in-law, what's the punishment? You get sreifa, so her mother, you get the same thing. Taima buhu. But what about in his case? She imay biskila. In other words, by your mother-in-law is stricter than your mother. A mother-in-law you get sreifa, your mother gets skila. Since your mother-in-law is such a terrible aveda, for whatever reason the Torah decides it's worse than your own mother because you're giving this sreifa, so maybe it makes sense we go one more generation. But my own mother, I only get skila. If I only get skila, which is a much weaker aveda, if you follow Reb Shimon, who said her mother is aveda b'chlal. Number one. Number two. Void imay biskila ain't imay bisreifa. It doesn't even make sense. Your mother, you get skila, and her mother, which is on a step away, you get a stricter punishment. Safe, klapnish. Number two. Mahi. Third question. The grandmother on her side is the same punishment as the mother-in-law on her side. You both get sreifa. So maybe the same thing should be. If you want to have exei shavo, maybe that's the minah you should look. That the grandmother, and the mother-in-law should be the same. So his grandmother should be the same as mother. What skila? And we have a problem. Whenever you have Exer Shava, and there's two ways of learning, are you going to compare it to that they're both the same, so here should be skila, or you're going to say just like the grandmother did get straight for here gets straight, but we don't know which way to go? There's no Exer Shava. So it's clear from here that when they learn Gzei Shabbos in the Sinai, they might have just learned, according to one opinion in the Taisa brings the Shabbos, it's they only learned the number of Gzei Shabbos. They have to work out what it is. Or even they were told what the words are, but they weren't told exactly what to learn. Otherwise, what's the question there? So what are the two ways of learning? But we were told in Sinai, this is the way you should go. Anyway, so it says Rava, there's no Gzei Shabbos. Okay, so now what about the other opinion? Well, the one who says the skill is stricter. So one is a skill is stricter, so two of the questions fall away. But the last question is a good question. Which way are we going to compare? Are we going to compare that they both get the same punishment, or are we going to say that since they're there, the grandmother gets safer, here, hers gets safer, so therefore no Gzei Shabbos? That's according to Doimino Umino. It doesn't matter what happens there to the grandmother. Okay, we learn from it that it's also with your own grandmother, and then we learn over here what the Isa should be. So the your mother is skila, also gets skila. Is mahi aim imasura afunam aim masura. Okay, and now so let's learn over here. Over there, maybe she gets safer like the mother-in-law. But over here, you get skila like your mother. So let's go through it again. The one is a safer chamura. Equal mifra, we can ask. Malihi, you know why over there the grandmother's she can't ima b'sefer, so strict with your mother-in-law. So the Taita said, let's go one more generation. But over here your mother is much weaker. So when he's skilla, who said her mother is asa? Number one. Number two, who kihi. Now what over there should be exactly the same. Mahi now your mother gets skilla, but your daughter, in other words, your wife's daughter. Your wife's mother gets skilla. Your wife's daughter, you get streifa. As we learn from the pasuk. So maybe we should compare a step away to a step away and say that just like the daughter, you get streifa. The grandmothers, you get streifa as well. And go further. Over there, there's no difference between the daughter and a daughter. You always get streifa. So over there, you get streifa. And for the daughter, you get straight for the grandmother by your wife's family. Is avhu like over here also? Your grandmother should be the same punishment as your daughter because that's how it's over there. And what is it? And what's your daughter's punishment? Streifa. So maybe your grandmother streifa. Now we have two ways of learning, and when you have two ways of learning Shava, there's no Gzei Shava. The one is skila chamura. What is a skill of chamura? So two of the questions don't apply. That means the mother is so strict, so surely her next generation will be also. Or the mahai kusha, but for this very question, what way do we go? Then Gemara goes further. Okay, so we have the Gzei Shabbos. That's another question. Imahu kalose asuda. Let's say his own daughter-in-law is asud to him. Is avhi kalose asuda? So too, your wife's daughter-in-law, just like your own daughter-in-law, not daughter, just like your own daughter-in-law, right? Your son's wife is asud to you. So we should now compare the two and say that your wife's son's wife, your wife's daughter-in-law, should be asud to you. Yeah, so and she get same punishments. The pasuk says, "Eishes binchehi." If he has relation with his daughter-in-law, it's aser Eishes binchehi. Why does it have to spell out Eishes binchehi? We know what kalas is. Only if it's your son's wife are you chayiv. But you have to chayiv Eishes b'no. But you're not chayiv for her son's wife. There you're not chayiv. You're not chayiv. That's a bay pasuk. Come along, Rav, the same cheshem as before. Rabban says, whichever way you want to learn Gzei Shabbos, doesn't make sense. Another one says that you learn from there. It's completely ma and say as follows. Ma who kalos says so, just like he's also for his own daughter-in-law. Afhi nami kalos so to his wife's daughter-in-law. It's not even his children, but his wife's daughter-in-law also to him. Umina, then look, they get the same punishment. Ma who biskila, for his daughter-in-law he gets skila, which is interesting. For his own daughter, he gets streifa. But for his daughter-in-law, he gets skila. So if you hold skila stricter, which is what we hold, there's all gzeis hakasas. Because why should your daughter-in-law be stricter than your own daughter? But that's how it is. So there's a difference between a daughter-in-law and a daughter. Your own daughter, you get sreifa, but for daughter-in-law, you get skila. Is afhinami, so too, let's compare it to doimino, umino, about her daughter-in-law, you get skila. Is lamando skila chamura, the one who has skila chamura, that makes sense. Maluhu, you know why? First of all, you know why you get skilla for the daughter-in-law? She can't imay beskilla since his mother beskilla. So one generation up, so one generation down. Also for the daughter-in-law, you get skilla. Taima bihi, but by her she gets the weaker punishment. She ima b'sefer sachakal. The mother-in-law is safe, and it's a weaker punishment. So who said you go down a daughter-in-law? Who said you go down a level? Or you should at least get straight for that. Both of them be safe. Oh, he beat the b'sefer or the skilla. Doesn't make sense that her daughter, you get streifa, and the daughter-in-law, you get the stricter punishment skilla. Second, this question doesn't make sense because your own daughter is the same thing. That's not a question. The bitoy b'seifa kalach b'skila. That's a custom. Your own daughter, you get streifa, and your daughter gets skila. Ela mahu. This is the question. There's two ways of learning the Shava. Mahu lechilakta by ben ima lekalasa. For your mother, you get skila, and for your daughter, you get skila. So afi by her also, maybe we should learn that whatever you get for the mother-in-law, you should get for the daughter-in-law. Like the chalaba ben ima lekalasa. Why she gets straight for she gets straight for both. Or maybe we compare it to just like you get skila for your own daughter-in-law, maybe for her daughter-in-law you also get skila. We don't know which way to go. No, throughout the kabbalah. Well, the man, the one who says streifa is strict. Mahai kusha, at least this last question, we don't know which way to go. Throw it out. Well, the man, you learn from there, but then you learn here. So what's the problem? So the daughter-in-law, maybe over there will get streifa, like the mother-in-law, you get streifa, maybe the daughter-in-law, else good and fine. Mahu kalas suda. So we establish from here that your daughter-in-law is also afi kalas suda. Buki basa, hasam over there who did skilla, over there you get skilla. Aval hoch over here b'seifa. Get the ashkan just like we find the ima. Let's say by asking, we're looking at there's like a mother-in-law, you get streifa, so to the daughter you get streifa. So that's still problematic. The man is skila chamur. The one who says skila is strict. You can be when ask, why he's also the daughter-in-law. Mahu shekei ima biskila, because his mother is biskila, with another generation is skila. So to the daughter-in-law is also is also. But then it's weaker. The mother-in-law is sachakal is streifa. Who said the daughter-in-law is also? Number one. But furthermore, mahu chalakta by ben bita kalasei. Over here, the daughter you get streifa, for the daughter you get skila. So over there also you have to separate the two. Don't just say compare it to the mother-in-law. Maybe compare it in the sense that there should be a different law between a daughter-in-law and a daughter. And since for the daughter of her daughter you get streifa, for the daughter-in-law she gets skila. So we don't know which way to go. Abolish it. This question you can ask. How do you know? Just two more lines. How do you know a daughter? The pasuk says bas b'no bas bita, the grandchildren. But how do you know her daughter? This is the woman that you ma'anis, that you raped. How do you know her daughter's also to you? Maybe only the grandchildren. I'm going to buy Kabbalah. Does that make sense? Albaz bita onush albita lakoshkein. For the granddaughter you punish, and the daughter you're not going to be punished. Doesn't make sense. But the mother sword doesn't make sense. We don't learn Kabbalah from a Kabbalah. We learned just recently that there's a machlekes whether you say einshim in hadin or not. But we don't want Amorain to go into that machlekes. And at least now we say Abai change his mind. Gili milsa balmu. This is different than other Kabbalah because here a granddaughter is also because bas bita. Her Eastern is her. What's her relationship to you? Because she's your daughter's daughter. So if your daughter is not Asad, can't be that your daughter's daughter is Asad. So it's a Gila Milsa Ba'amr. It's obvious. It's not even a Kabul Chaymer. And Rabbi says, we had it many times. We learn out. You know how your daughter is? Learn a Heina Asya Zima Zima. Because in the psukim there, it talks about in the psukim there, it mentions the daughter as well. Because it says Erebus Isha Ubita. So we already know the daughter, and we learn, and it says Zima. So we have Heina and Zima learns all out. And there's a third opinion which we'll learn tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. So tomorrow we instead of